Welcome back to Movies and TV Shows on the Ball. My name is Gruesome Steve, and with me is
Spooky J.
Woo! Hey guys, welcome back to another Halloween episode of Movies and TV Shows on the Ball. This is a special television episode. We are going to take a look at the Simpsons House of Horror. But before we check, we're going to look at episode one, or the first Treehouse of Horror. But before we dive into the Treehouse of Horror show, we're going to kind of tell you where we kind of stand with the Treehouse of Horror first. So Jay, what was your kind of take on the first Treehouse, or like, the Treehouse of Horrors? I mean, it's gone for about, I guess, it started with The Simpsons in the second season.
Yeah.
And it's always been kind of a trope of like the Simpsons Halloween special.
Right. It's always been like almost my favorite of the Simpson episodes. I feel like they put a lot of work into these, like, animation wise, and
I think you need like what they're probably the show is a 30-minute show, so it's with commercials. And so the Simpsons kind of the shorts have to be pretty
snappy. Yeah.
Snappy,
right. What are your thoughts on? I guess my initial thoughts. I love them. I don't know.
I like them. I kind of, what's interesting is I've been watching for this guy go through on YouTube episodes of the Twilight Zone. And one thing I've noticed watching episodes of Twilight Zone is I'm like going, I know that episode. That was an episode ripped off on The Simpsons. Or not, Simpsons did it on that Treehouse of Horror film. But like, I kind of feel like it's been kind of at least a Halloween trope, especially with your brother. He's always like, I remember when we were like probably in our teens. We would watch at least one Treehouse of Horror like on Halloween.
Right, it was part of like our Halloween ritual, yeah.
After we went trick or treating, or maybe we were a little bit too old to trick or treat. But after we spooked the neighbors. And Treehouse of Horror, it's been a staple of The Simpsons, and it's also been a staple, kind of like. I've been watching the Twilight Zone, go through the Twilight Zone. And I'm like, that's a Simpsons episode. That's a Simpsons episode. And that's kind of what kind of got me into Twilight Zone, not just the fact that he was into it,
Right.
What was your? I guess before we're gonna cover probably the first episode of the Twilight or Treehouse of Horror. What were your favorite Treehouse of Horror?
Oh gosh, I don't. I'm not sure my favorite, but I guess one that sticks out to me is I enjoyed their take on The Shining.
Okay, yeah, that was, I think, season 6, and it was The Shining, and I like that. I mean, that kind of, that's the other thing about some of these Simpsons episodes introduced me to kind of the, like, horror films, too,
Right, yeah.
Simpsons did it, but, The Shining kind of was, because I think you and I went and saw The Shining at an outdoor theater.
Right. What about you?
Shining.
Yeah. What was your favorite, or what's one of your favorites?
One of my favorites. I like the clown, the Krusty the Clown doll, just because of the ending where he's like, "Oh, he was on evil."
Right.
Switch it off. I liked the season. I think it's the 8th Treehouse of Horror season, 8th or 9th Treehouse of Horror. But when Marge is a witch.
Okay.
There's one of those.
Her sisters also, which is like they do like a coven. Okay.
Yeah, where they get burned at the stake. I mean, I know they've got like 34 of them now.
Right. There's a lot.
I liked the Raven, the first one from Treehouse of Horror 1, The Raven, where it was kind of basically Edgar Allan.
Oh, right.
It was great because it was narrated by James Earl Jones.
Ooh, okay.
So, perched and sat, nevermore. The other ones I liked is where Lisa gets shrunk down into. She creates life. And so she gets shrunk down, and they think she's a god. She's like a god.
This is different than the Sea Monkeys one.
No, this one is. The episode is basically she takes a tooth, one of her loose teeth, and pours soda in it to show you how soda is gonna kill your neighbor.
Yeah.
And Bart shows up and kind of becomes how brothers are. He was taking a balloon and rubbing his head.
Oh, static. Oh, so it's like a little electric shock. Okay.
Electric shock brings life, and
okay.
And they're like going, "You think I'm God?" Like the events or the time happens and
right.
makes the society.
Okay.
I liked the one that. Then there was one where It's a Good Life that was based on It's a Good Life, which was about this kid who basically has everybody on his everybody under his finger, and which has one of the creepiest scenes in an episode of The Twilight Zone.
Gotcha.
But it was kind of where Homer becomes a Jack in the Box. There's a lot of them that we were fans of, but I guess for me that kind of and it does kind of bring that sort of we're Simpsons fans, and I think since it's Halloween season, the spookiest time of the year, I kind of thought that maybe we could kind of, for a bonus episode, take a look at the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror. So we're gonna look at the first one, and in the first one it's with Treehouse of Horror, it's always in the 3 acts.
Right.
3 parts. And it's usually 3 stories in the same act. There's any other Treehouse of Horrors that come to mind The Raven.
Yeah.
Was,
I enjoyed, I can't remember all of them from last year's with the Babadook. Cause I remember I think one they did like a Death Note parody and they changed their animation style, which was really interesting.
Cool. No, they did I think the 4th fifth one. The 4th one.
Right.
They did Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Okay.
As Mr. Burns' Dracula.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
So that was a pretty good one, but and then I kind of liked. So there's a lot of them. The one where Homer becomes a it's the not Days of Thunder, Sound of Thunder effect, where he crushes a bug and goes back in time, and the future changes.
Yeah, the butterfly effect. Yeah.
That was a good episode. But we're gonna take a look at season 2's first Treehouse of Horror. Stay tuned. Okay, we're back. We just got out. Well, we didn't get out. We just finished Treehouse of Horror episode 1. So what we're going to do on this podcast is we're going to break it down into the 3 stories.
Right.
So we're going to start. There's 3 stories. So the first one is called Death House.
I can't remember the exact name. Yeah, it's more like a, I think it was a sort of take on the Poltergeist movie somewhat, like Haunted House.
And then the second one is on the To Serve Man. It's when our first introduction to Kang and kodes. And then the third one is Quote the Raven, Nevermore. It's going to be on the Raven, which is Edgar Allan Poe's
right.
story. So let's start with the first one. So what was your so Jay? My thought, I kind of thought that the first one was kind of pretty good because they're 15 for about what 15 to 8 minutes
Yeah.
a piece.
Right. So they're pretty fast.
Pretty fast. So the first one is so actually let's open up the start of it.
Right.
The start of it is pretty much before we get to the stories. They just got so it's Bart and Lisa. They just got done eating candy or
Right. Trick or treating.
And they're in their treehouse where they're going to have their, and I'm using air quotes, people, treehouse of horror.
Right. And actually, we saw like this episode was not called the Treehouse of Horror, right?
It's the Simpsons
Halloween special, right?
I think it's the Simpsons Halloween special for the first 4 seasons. Yeah, I think once it gets to Treehouse of Horror 4 or 3, it starts just to call Treehouse of Horror.
Gotcha.
So this is a Halloween special. So they just got done trick or treating, and they're in their treehouse.
Right.
And they're about to kind of swap ghost stories.
Right.
Meanwhile, Homer, who went as a ghost, is like he says, "I love Halloween," and he's got his candy, and he's like, "I wonder what the kids are up to."
Right.
And so the kids are in Bart and Lisa. They're in their treehouse, and they're like, "Let's tell scary stories." So
right.
The first one is told by Bart or Lisa.
Trying to remember which one.
It's the house.
Yeah, I know it's the house, but I'm trying to remember which one and who's telling it. I think
Lisa tells the Surf Man. Or was it Bart? I know Bart does the last one.
Well, no, Lisa does the Raven.
Lisa does the Raven, I think.
I think Bart does 2 in a row.
2 in a row, okay.
Right.
So Bart does the...
Because I think and she's like Lisa's telling something like the call is coming from the same house.
So so they basically are telling the story, kind of... They're already in the process of telling one...
Right.
Lisa's pretty much ending
a story.
And then Bart says, "That wasn't that scary.
I'll tell you a scary story."
Like, well, if you think that's not scary, because I think that was probably from the Stranger Calls. They kind of reminded me of like the call was coming from the house.
Right. Yeah.
So it's called. So Bart says that's not scary, and so Bart comes out with comes out with a story.
Yeah.
Based on the Amityville horror film.
I think it was Poltergeist. Yeah, somewhat. Yeah, but also I think just pulling from a lot of like haunted house stuff.
So basically, Homer. So he says, "I'll tell you the story," and it's a haunted. So the Simpsons in the store. So he starts saying, "Once upon a time," basically.
Right.
And he, and so we see the Simpsons. They've just moved in to a
creepy old house,
which kind of reminded me a little bit the way it looked, like the Addams Family house a little bit.
Yeah, it's sort of like your sort of traditional spooky
house.
Old house.
Like,
sort of like a mansion-ish.
And I kind of liked, I liked how it looked.
Yeah.
And so he's like, so Homer and they're moved in, and you don't know why, but they moved in, and
they've gotten like a super great deal on the house.
Yeah, they got a super great deal on the house, and the movers are like saying, "I don't know why you want to live in this house, move in this house."
Right.
And so they're like, "Oh, it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine."
Yeah, and then it sort of like just immediately starts. You see like sort of books floating around as they're trying to unpack.
And that's kind of pretty cool. And like I like how Bart unpacks the book, and the book flies back into the thing, and he unpacks it again.
Right.
And I thought that was a kind of you're right. That's kind of cool, cute. And then the house starts to say, "Get out!" And they're like, what is that sound?
It's like just the house settling.
It's just yeah, it's just the house. It's just the house settling. And so the
And they see like the kitchen's bleeding, has like blood coming from the walls.
Now is that from anything? Do you know?
I can't remember specifically, but I think it's like a sort of a trope among just like haunted house stuff. Yeah.
And
they also find a portal to another dimension.
Oh, so yeah, the portal. So they found a portal to another dimension, which was something that was seen in the Twilight Zone. I think I think there's a different. It's not a portal. I think it's actually like a. In the Twilight Zone, it's actually like a door, kind of a cosmic door.
Yeah.
But this one, it's an actual swirl, and Homer's like, "Whoo! Look at this!" and he throws in
an orange,
orange, and then the orange is thrown back in with a note that says, "Please stop throwing your garbage in our dimension."
Right.
So I like the little winks, like they kind of, it takes the comedy.
Right.
And then Homer's like, so they're basically eating dinner, right?
Right, I think the next thing is they sort of like they come in and see Bart sort of like floating up, getting strangled by a telephone.
By a telephone, yeah. And he's like, Bart, what are you, and Homer thinks Bart's horsing around.
Right.
And he's like, it's not me, I ain't doing anything. And,
right.
And Bart says, so Bart basically says, Homer thinks Bart's just messing around, and Bart's like, get down from there, and Bart gets down from there, and then Maggie has a knife, right? Or something.
I think Lisa's like, I feel an evil presence, and that's when Marge's like, we're gonna leave, and then Homer's like, well, let's just sleep on it.
Let's just sleep on it. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And Marge is like, okay, fine, we'll sleep on it.
And then sort of the house sort of like is whispering at night, telling them all like sort of like everyone's against each other.
Everybody's against you. And I like that scene because I liked how the scene pretty much opens where it's not like zombie kind of where like must kill. It's almost like it's psychotic,
Yeah.
More psychotic. Like Homer gets the nut and kind of doesn't really say anything. He just gets the axe and says, Marge.
Right.
Oh, Marge. It's not really like The Shining. It's a little bit more demented.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
And Bart gets, so Homer's got an axe. Bart's got a
cleaver. I think.
And then Lisa's got the knife.
A knife, and then so does Maggie.
Right. And so he's like, Marge, and then they start getting in a circle, kind of a.
They're all stalking each other, Right.
And I like what they kind of did is that they sort of like. Went around, and then Marge is like, Lisa, Bart, what are you doing? Homer, what are you doing? No more knife games,
Yeah.
And then you hear the house say, get out. And then the house pretty much, and then Lisa kind of says, so what's wrong, tries to shrink the house. Not shrink, but tries to use psychology through the house. And then the house ends up saying, oh, come on, it's like, come on, we'll talk to you. And I don't want to talk. The house is like, I don't want to talk.
Right.
And he, like, kicks them out and ends up destroying himself.
Yeah.
And Lisa says, I can't believe he would rather he would rather destroy himself than live with the Simpsons.
Right.
So I guess the way we'll work on it is we'll just kind of. What was your thoughts on part one?
Gotcha. I liked the part one. Well, I don't know. What were your thoughts?
I liked it.
Did you have a favorite joke from the little segment?
I think probably the the Lisa kind of going, well, we could probably, tries to shrink
To
that.
analyze the house.
Tries to
Okay.
analyze the house. I thought that was kind of clever. I thought that Homer, I liked how Homer kind of got a little bit crazier.
Yeah. I guess my favorite was when the house is telling Bart to kill, like his parents. Like Bart asks, like, "Are you my conscience?"
Oh yeah. But Bart's like,
That was pretty good.
and Bart's like, yo yeah. The house is like, yeah, I'm your conscience. I do remember that.
Yeah.
I kind of, I mean, I thought this section was pretty good. I thought it was, I mean, because it's like what, 8 minutes. For
Yeah.
each skit or
Yeah,
each
about it. Yeah.
thing. So part 2 is one of my favorites. Not one of my favorites, but just it's called Hunger Are the Damned. And it's kind of based on To Serve Man.
Okay.
A little bit. Now, To Serve Man is a really like iconic, classic Twilight Zone episode where a bunch of aliens come down and they preach prosperity and freedom, and everything will be affected. It's actually got Richard Kern, who was in Happy Gilmore. He played the Mr. Lawson, the big guy, real tall guy. He was Jaws in.
Oh yeah, okay, Jaws. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, he was he played one of the aliens, and they come down to Earth and they preach, prosperity, and they basically find out that they eat, like he eats, feeds them. I mean, it does. And then they find out that it's a cookbook.
Gotcha.
So they kind of this sort of plays a lot on that.
Gotcha. Okay.
I mean, I saw this before I saw the Serve Man.
Right.
Thing, but so anyway, the Simpsons are outside
barbecuing.
They're barbecuing. They're getting their barbecue on. They're making burgers, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere,
yeah, a flying saucer
shows up, and they all look up, and Homer's like, like Bart, and is Lisa's sort of the first one that notices.
Right.
And I love the shot where you can see the the saucer coming up behind Bart's eyes. I thought that was a pretty cool shot.
Yeah.
And I thought the still of Lisa looking up. So anyway, the aliens come and they abduct
the Simpsons
really, really fast too.
Right.
So they abduct like Lisa, Bart, Marge, Maggie, and then they try to abduct Homer.
And they struggle.
Too big, so they use 2 beams
right.
to get him up. So when they get them up, they're like, who are you? And there's like, I am Kang and Kodos, who are the 2 aliens. And that they
reoccur.
They recur. I think they really reoccur every Halloween.
Okay.
Episode, like they do. They're more of the intro people.
Right.
And they're actually featured on the 14th DVD cover. The cover of the 14th season DVD.
Okay.
Of The Simpsons. So he has so they go, what are you what are you gonna do? It's like, nonsense. We're here to
take you to paradise.
Right. Yeah, was it take you to paradise or?
Yeah, they're gonna take them back to their planet
for a feast, for a huge feast, right?
Well, Lisa asked them, "Why don't you eat?" And there's that other.
No. When they ask him, and he's like, "How about we serve you a meal?" Because they say we take you to paradise. And then he's like, "How about we serve you a meal for your travel?"
Right.
And so they feed. So they end up serving them dinner, and it's like Homer gets pork chops.
Yeah, right.
Lisa gets, who's I think
Popcorn shrimp. Yeah, she's not vegan or vegetarian.
She's not vegetarian
right.
yet. I think she's a vegetarian not until season 9. But popcorn shrimp, Homer or Bart gets like cheeseburgers and
Yeah, I can't remember.
And then Marge gets some other
radish rosé or something.
Rosé or something. Yeah. So they get like their favorite meals and they start eating. And as they're eating, Homer's like, oh, why don't you guys eat? He's like, oh, we're saving our hunger for the feast at the
planet they're going to. Yeah.
And Lisa kind of gets a little bit of a look of concern, and but I did like that scene where Homer and Marge are eating, and one of the aliens says, Homer's like, "What are you looking at?" And the alien's saying, "Your wife looks like a dish. It's like a dish." I'm like, "Woo, thank you, woo, thank you." So they start feeding them, and
right.
Lisa still gets a little suspicious.
Right, she does.
So she starts kind of wandering around the the spaceship, and as she's wandering around the spaceship,
she finds the kitchen.
And you see kodes or one of the other aliens say, "I can't wait to eat these, to eat these humans." And she's like, she's pouring in, and she goes back to the where the family is.
Yeah, after grabbing the cookbook.
They grab it, and she's like, "I found this cookbook. It says
how to cook humans."
And then Kodos goes, What do you mean?" And he takes the book and he says, "It's not say that." And he blows on it. It says how to cook 4 humans. And then Lisa says, "Wait a minute.
There's more dust.
There's more dust. How to cook for 40 humans. No.
40 humans.
How to cook for 40 humans, and then there's another. So I like that joke.
Yeah, it's a pretty good joke.
And so Homer kind of says, "Wait a minute. Nobody is going to eat the Simpsons." And I did kind of like that after they eat, because it looks like they've been on the spaceship for a while.
Right.
They go to a weighing station.
Right.
And you look at Marge gets on, and they're like, And then Bart gets on, and they're like, But then when Homer gets on,
he it's off the charts.
And their mouth starts to water. And then Homer, so that was kind of a cool scene, So Homer's like going back to the cookbook. He's like, nobody, and I mean nobody's gonna eat the Simpsons.
Right. So then the aliens sort of send them back to Earth, and we would have taken you to
or Rigel 7.
Yeah.
And you'd be a paradise.
And you'd have lived forever, but since you didn't trust us, they're gonna leave them.
That was kind of a nice.
Yeah, it was a twist.
To it.
Instead of them being evil, they were actually nice.
Yeah, so they basically leave Earth, and the Simpsons are back in their backyard, and that section ends. And then we get to section number 3.
Right.
And the third section is called The Raven. So Jay, what was your thoughts on? This is the first. I guess what I'm trying to say is this is the first time this is how I understood what the Raven was.
Okay.
Edgar Allan Poe, but you said you read the.
Yeah, I've read it before. It's been a long time since I've.
Do you want to tell the audience any
I guess I can't remember exact details, but it sort of sounds like they were following somewhat closely to the.
Okay.
And I think that was sort of the humor is just because they're following the wording, but just with the Homer's saying. I don't know,
Homer
sort of
saying it, but it's
right.
I mean it's pretty much spot on to what.
I think so, but I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, it sounds like it, especially with you said it was narrated by George
No, it's James Earl Jones,
James Earl Jones.
the
Okay.
voice of Darth Vader. Jay,
Yeah, it's very soothing.
soothing,
And
and so he's like, as I wandered dark and weary, can't, nevermore.
yeah, rapping at his chamber door.
And it's Homer, and I like that. But I also like Lisa. It started because Lisa's basically reading all this
Uh-huh.
horror books, and this is really where Bart really gets into. Not he's into it as a audience member or as a spectator,
Right.
but he starts saying, you can kind of hear James Earl Jones's voice, narrate, and then all of a sudden
Bart says
Bart
the
says,
nevermore.
"Eat my shorts."
Oh, right.
And
Yeah.
Lisa's like, Bart, we're not talking, and it kind of breaks that wall where I
Right.
felt like the first two were more in the story, kind of basically in the story.
Right.
So anyway, Lisa starts reading it with James Earl Jones's voice, and Porch sat, and then I liked how of my Lenore Homer plays it. I think the Homer plays it really well as the man who gets tormented by the raven.
Right.
And I thought Bart was a pretty good. Porchstead sat never on the bust,
Right.
nevermore. And I like that. I liked it. Do you have any? Since you kind of, what are your thoughts on it?
I liked it. I like sort of the animation. The narration was great, and just sort of the what's that fancy word? The juxtaposition between like the silly cartoon characters acting out a.
Well, and I thought Homer, like one of my favorite thought when Homer does that lines of when he's like when he gets really mad.
Yeah, that's when it gets really funny. Which is sort of growling out the line.
He's growling the poem, and short, and he's like, "You neighbor." And then I did like when the narrator says, "Looking at the portrait of my Lenore." There's a picture. There's like a painting of Marge's.
It takes like a couple paintings to get her hair.
Paintings to get her hair, and I liked how I liked how each what I liked about it was I liked how it just worked, like the narration worked. Homer's kind of as he goes more insane with the bird, and I like how he like chases it. It's kind of got its own kind of comedic feel to it.
Yeah.
And he's porched and sat and nothing more. And just I thought I think that was one of my favorite. Maybe my we'll go into it a little bit. Next,
Okay.
But I liked the Raven. I thought that
Yeah.
was really good.
I did too.
What was your what was your thoughts on as the first Treehouse of Horror? Did you kind of think it was trying to find its feet a little bit, or do you think it was like right out of the park, or what was your kind of thoughts?
I guess looking back from like all the ones that come after this one doesn't feel as strong. I guess.
But I felt like it's kind of like it's trying to find its feet.
Right.
It's trying to find its feet.
I sort of agree with you. I think even though I don't think it was the funniest, the Raven, I think it was still like the strongest of the three.
I feel like the house wasn't as good. I mean, because I didn't really understand. I mean, but to serve, because I guess I just watched an episode of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Thing. I was like, oh, this is.
Yeah, I think the first two had some better like
Openings.
laughs but I think the Raven one,
was
yeah,
just the strongest
yeah,
one. Yeah, I would probably say that I thought to serve 40 humans, serve 40 humans. I thought that was a good joke. I like the Raven. I kind of feel like we kind of saw. I mean, for what it was, I mean, it's a pretty good taste of Halloween.
Yeah.
But I did like the the actual treehouse of horror.
Right.
We got to see see, and then
Yeah.
kind of how the name will kind of become
Yeah.
infamous with The Simpsons.
I did also like the Marge gives a little like preamble, like warning. Yeah.
So let's talk about that. So I guess we kind of went into more of the storyline at the beginning of the episode, but I think for the maybe the first 6 or like seasons 1 through seasons 5. I know seasons 2 through season 6. I think or season 5.
They have a little warning.
So in a lot of the episodes, have a little warning. So
Right.
a lot of the Treehouse of Horror episodes come out. Marge is kind of comes out of behind the curtain and says, "Now a lot of people are a little bit, worried about, there's a lot of scary things. There's a lot of violence on TV." And she's trying to be the parental guidance.
Right.
And, I mean, I do remember there was one back in I think the 8th Treehouse of Horror in season 9. You see this censor guy going through the script of tonight's episode of The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror.
Right.
He's like going, "Hi, I'm the guy that censors TV, and because of parental complaints, this episode of Treehouse of Horror is going to be rated TVG," and the TVG shows up, and then he said for greatness, and then the G starts taking out the knife, and if we ever get to that, I'll give in more detail. But as it's cutting him, it changes into like G, PG, TVA, that kind of thing. So I kind of like how that what we'll see in the future. But Marge usually kind of says, I'm hoping that this is going to be a lot more scary. Now, I did mention, that the To Serve Man. I saw a guy review that, and what I liked about it was that one kind of. I thought it was really interesting that the shocker was a cookbook.
Right.
But the fact that he can't get out of the spaceship, and he's up in space and smoking a cigarette, because that's what they did in the 60s. He says soon they'll be taking, it's a really kind of it's a lot creepier than the way it's
right.
But I thought this was a really good first episode. I thought it wasn't as strong. I think we're gonna get more stronger episodes as we go through the season or through the years of Treehouse of Horror. But it has to ride its training wheels before it can ride its bike. Right. So what would you give this? Okay, what would you give each section?
Oh, each section.
Since it's a two-part, since it's a
three-parter.
What would you give section 1 to serve Homer?
That's the second one.
Rate them from 1 to 10.
Okay.
Each section 1 to 10.
I would give maybe the first 2 6.5 with the haunted house, and then the aliens, and then the Raven maybe a 7.5. 7.5.
I'll give the Raven an 8.
Okay.
This works. I give the haunted house one was probably maybe a 6.
Okay.
And the Serve Man was probably, or not Serve Man, the Kang and Kodes one, I give it a 9.
Okay.
I like that one a little bit better. I mean, it's a lot faster than I thought I remember it.
Right.
But it worked pretty well. So I thought that was pretty good. So join us next time where we will be getting out of the Halloween spirit and going into.
I think we got to get back to Zorro.
And
right.
Then
John Wick.
Chapter 4. The Fourth Awakening. All right, I'm Steve,
And
and
I'm
with me as always,
Jay.
have a good one, and see you on the movies. Nick, Nickelodeon.